Which iPad should you buy? You're in the market for a new iPad, but you've got too many options and you don't know what to buy. With the release of the redesigned iPad and the M2 iPad Pros, the decision of which iPad to buy has never been harder. You have the redesigned 10th generation iPad and the 5th generation iPad Air, which from the outside don't seem like they're separated by a lot. And then you have a pretty big jump up to the 6th generation iPad Pros with Apple's newest M2 chip. Then there's the 6th generation iPad mini and the entry-level 9th generation iPad still out there. Whether you're a student, a hobbyist creative, or someone looking to replace their laptop, there's a specific iPad that you should buy, and you don't want to make the mistake of buying the wrong one. In this video, I'm going to give you the answer to the question, which iPad should you buy? On Tuesday, October 18th, Apple announced iPad updates via YouTube, Twitter, and their newsroom. They finally updated the design of their entry-level iPad, which is now on its 10th generation, and it matches the design language of the iPad mini, iPad Air, and iPad Pros, which means things like Apple's alt-screen design, a 10.9-inch liquid retina display, Touch ID has moved to the top sleep wake button like on the iPad Air and iPad mini. It makes the switch from a lightning connector to USB-C, and center stage with the ultra-wide front camera, which keeps you or other callers in the middle of the screen when you move around during video calls. What sets this iPad apart from the other ones is that they've moved this camera to the long edge so that it actually makes sense in landscape mode. And they have a new keyboard case they've designed specifically for this iPad, the Magic Keyboard Folio with a versatile two-piece design. It includes a detachable keyboard with 14 function keys and a protective back panel with an adjustable stand, similar to the built-in stand of a Surface tablet, Asus Z13 Flow, or other similar devices. The device is powered by the A14 Bionic and also works with Apple Pencil Gen 1. The new 10th generation iPad starts at $449, and the Magic Folio keyboard starts at $249. Apple's 5th generation iPad Air is pretty similar in a lot of ways to the 10th generation iPad. It also features Apple's alt-screen design, a 10.9-inch liquid retina display, Touch ID on the sleep wake button, USB-C, center stage with the ultra-wide front camera, although this camera is positioned on the short edge for portrait mode. However, instead of the A14 system on the chip, this iPad has an M1 CPU. It works with the Apple Pencil Gen 2 and works with the Magic Keyboard, just like the iPad Pros. The 5th generation iPad Air starts at $599. At the same event where they unveiled the 10th generation iPad, Apple also announced that 6th generation iPad Pros were getting M2, along with a new, more powerful processor. The iPad Pros get Wi-Fi 6E for the first time ever in an Apple product, and a new hover feature for the Apple Pencil, which could be especially useful for digital artists and designers. The iPad Pro has Apple's all-screen design, a USB-C port that offers Thunderbolt support. The 11-inch version has a liquid retina display just like the 10th gen iPad and iPad Air, but what sets this display apart is its ProMotion adaptive 120Hz refresh rate. The 12.9-inch iPad Pro also has a ProMotion display, but has Apple's Liquid Retina XDR display, which is the same caliber display as Apple's Pro Display XDR. It features a 1,000,000:1 contrast ratio, 1,000 nits of full screen brightness, and 1,600 nits of peak brightness, and over 2,500 local dimming zones. It works with the 2nd gen Apple Pencil, and it still works with the same Magic Keyboard. The iPad Pros use Face ID to unlock instead of Touch ID, and they also have center stage. The M2 system on a chip offers up to 15% faster CPU performance, up to 35% faster graphics performance, and up to 40% more neural engine processing power when compared to the M1 version. The M2 iPad Pro starts at $799 for the 11-inch version and starts at $1099 for the 12.9-inch version. Apple also recently updated their 6th generation iPad mini. This device got an update to Apple's alt-screen design, but with an 8.3-inch liquid retina display. It has Touch ID on the sleep wake button, USB-C, center stage with the ultra-wide front camera, although this camera is also positioned on the short edge for portrait mode. It uses Apple's A15 Bionic chip and has support for Apple's 2nd generation Apple Pencil. It does not work with a Magic Keyboard or have a first-party equivalent. And the 6th generation iPad starts at $499. And lastly, and I guess possibly least, the 9th generation iPad, which is the entry-level iPad. This device does not feature Apple's alt-screen design. It has Apple's original iPad design, with a chunky forehead, chunky chin, and Touch ID home button. It has a 10.2-inch Retina display and a lightning connector on the bottom, no USB-C. This iPad also has center stage with the ultra-wide front camera, although this camera is also positioned on the short edge for portrait mode. It uses Apple's A13 Bionic chip, has support for Apple's first generation Apple Pencil, and the 9th generation iPad starts at $329. After going over all of the iPads Apple has to offer, I have some questions. You may also be asking, hey, the 10th generation iPad uses USB-C. The Apple Pencil Gen 1 uses Lightning. How do they work together? A $9 dongle, of course. Apple has a bunch of questionable charging designs. Think of the Magic Mouse. Also, the 10th generation iPad in some ways has better features than the iPad Pro. It's the only iPad that features a landscape camera. Considering how much people video call these days, it's surprising they didn't bring that update to the iPad Pros also. Not to mention the Magic Folio keyboard has function keys, something that Pro users of the Magic Keyboard have been asking for years now. The 10th gen iPad and 4th gen iPad Air are essentially the same device, same design, same screen, same processor, except the 10th gen iPad is 0.05 inches bigger in every dimension, which means that you can't swap cases for these two devices, like you can between the iPad Air and 11-inch iPad Pro. Part of me thinks that Apple purposely designed this iPad to be bigger to prevent that. They spent extra money in research and development to make this thing that much bigger. The 4th gen iPad Air also gets Apple Pencil Gen 2 support and Magic Keyboard support. It does, however, have a slightly worse front camera, no new orientation, and loses center stage. But you can get a refurbished one on Apple's own website for $469. You could probably find a cheaper option somewhere else too. The iPad Pros also got pretty underwhelming updates. Yes, M2 on an iPad is a big deal, but they already weren't fully using the power of M1. When you have the M1 or M2 chip on an iPad, you're never going to be able to use the full potential of the chip because it's so limited by iPad OS. The 11-inch iPad Pro really should have gotten a mini LED screen too. It's in just as weird of a position as last update. I didn't mention the rear cameras on any of these iPads because most people don't use their tablets as their primary camera. Your phone is probably way better anyways. But the iPad Pros have the best cameras by far, along with a LiDAR sensor. All the other iPads essentially have the same rear camera, and image processing with the better chips may make the pictures appear better. iPads are a difficult product category to price and market. They're largely the same experience software-wise, so there are hardware limitations and features introduced to create separation. But that's kind of the same thing with their phones too, isn't it? I guess that's how you become a $1 trillion company though. But if you have an iPad that's as old as your kids, maybe it's time for an upgrade. So which iPad should you buy? In my opinion, the best value, best bang for your buck is the iPad Air. I think the 5th generation is the best. M1 chip, Apple Pencil Gen 2, Magic Keyboard and other accessories. The 4th gen is still really good. You get A14 instead of M1, but it's an iPad, so you probably aren't doing anything that intensive that'll push the processor. Also, you do lose out on center stage. If you FaceTime a lot, then maybe stick with the 5th gen. The 10th gen iPad is pretty good. Essentially the same thing as the 4th gen iPad Air, except no Apple Pencil Gen 2. But you get the new camera positioning. So when deciding between these two devices, you have to ask yourself, will I use the Apple Pencil more or the landscape camera? If you're someone who's gonna use the Apple Pencil quite a bit, then the Gen 2 Pencil is a big improvement. And the charging cable / dongle for the Gen 1 is a big nuisance. If you're someone who doesn't care about Apple Pencil and you're annoyed when the camera looks off center, then get the Gen 10. They couldn't exactly give it Gen 2 pencil support because then it would completely make the other iPads obsolete. Like when the iPad Air with M1 came out, I made the 11-inch Pro with M1 look like a waste of money. But I'm surprised they didn't move the front camera on the Pro, or give it a new Folio keyboard too, or at least function keys on the Magic Keyboard. Speaking of the Pro, if you're someone who's working on an M1 iPad Pro and you constantly find yourself thinking, hey, I wish this thing was more powerful so I could get more out of these apps. 1, what kind of stuff are you doing? Like genuinely, I'd like to talk to this person and find out what apps they use and what their workflow is. 2, you probably should just get a MacBook Pro or a Windows laptop, tablet or something. You're doing too much. If you want the best iPad Apple has to offer, the best chip, the best cameras, the best sounding quad speaker setup, the best screen, then you especially should get the 12.9 inch with the Liquid Retina XDR. Don't get the 11-inch iPad. You might as well get the iPad Air. Personally, I don't think anyone should get the iPad Pro, especially the 11-inch. If you're going to go with a Pro, go with the 12.9 inch Pro. But if you're getting it as a laptop replacement, the 12.9-inch iPad Pro costs about as much as a MacBook Air, and that's before you buy a keyboard or any other accessories. The iPad mini is also a good device. I used to have a Gen 2 iPad mini, which I really liked. It's super portable. Not that the bigger iPads aren't portable, just that it's much more portable, easier to hold, use in one hand. But after getting used to the bigger iPad screen, I don't know if I could give that up and go to a mini. If you like the size of the mini, you're a huge fan of the form factor and just want a small side screen, small display for easy media consumption, you can't go wrong. But the price you pay for what you get is a bit steep in my opinion. It's probably the best iPad for gaming though. It's closer to the size of a console controller, and it's much easier to hold. If you're looking for an iPad that's a laptop replacement or substitute, this isn't it. And finally, the entry-level 9th generation iPad. If you just want to get into the iPad ecosystem, this is the device for you. Essentially, all iPads are the same. They can run the same apps and do the same things, with the exception of Stage Manager on the M1 and M2 iPads. And even then, Stage Manager isn't that revolutionary of a tool, so definitely don't stress about it. If you're a student and your budget is tight, you can't go wrong with the 9th gen. Yes, you lose out on a newer design, new pencil, cool keyboards, but if you just want to use iPad apps, FaceTime, have a bigger screen for displaying PDFs and textbooks compared to an iPad mini, you want to take notes here and there, the 9th gen iPad is just as capable as all of the other devices. It gives you the best value for your money. So, if you want the essentials, get the 9th gen iPad. If you want an iPad for regular day-to-day stuff, mainly video calling, some content streaming, get the 10th gen iPad. If you care a bit about video or photo editing, want some more productivity that could benefit from a keyboard or stylus, then get the 5th gen iPad Air with M1. If you have money burning a hole in your pocket, and you want the absolute best Apple has, they get the 6th gen 12.9-inch iPad Pro with M2. If you sign up for the newsletter below, I get a free hat. Don't forget to confirm your subscription.